The number of voters in the state of Georgia who have been disenfranchised in a way to prevent them from voting is getting even more controversial. We're now finding that seniors who were on a bus on their way to vote early were essentially told by government officials that they need to get off the bus and they're not allowed to vote. Now this was a pretty crazy story that I couldn't believe, but it happened. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, government officials in an East Georgia county told about 40 African-American senior citizens to get off a bus taking them to vote on Monday. The group that was taking them to vote is Black Voters Matter. Now the bus run by this group was preparing to depart from a senior center operated by Jefferson County when the center's director said that they needed to disembark. Now, why? What happened? Well, the Jefferson County officials basically told them, no, you're breaking rules here by doing this. Jefferson County's administrator said that the county government considered the event at the senior center political activity, which isn't allowed during county-sponsored events. Now, that's fascinating. Now, political activity, the seniors were not told who they can and can't vote for, who they should vote for. There was no pressure in regard to candidates and who they should support. So let's just mention that. Now, I want to juxtapose this accusation to what happens all throughout the country on a daily basis. Churches are tax exempt. Churches are not supposed to participate in political activity, but they do it all the time. All the time. Not only do they do it in a way to encourage people to be politically active, they specify political candidates that they want their parishioners to support. Do they get their tax exempt status taken away as a result of that? Have they ever been punished as a result of that? If they have, it's extremely rare. More often than not, they very openly, transparently support candidates, and they do it in public forums on TV all the time.
I mean, look at this double standard. Trump even brags about how he's going to try to take that law away that prevents churches technically from being political while being tax exempt. So he's actively fighting, publicly fighting to let churches say whatever they want and tell everybody to vote Republican, okay? Meanwhile, they say, oh, no, these black people are being too political, these older black. But wait, did they say they were going to vote for Democrats? No, you just assume that. It's a nonpartisan group. They can vote for anyone they like. Nobody even told them which way to vote. Like, no, they're black, so they're probably gonna vote Democrat. So pull the bus over, because we can't have anything related to taxpayers funding anything political. So we just found the most egregious case of 40 seniors on a bus in the middle of Georgia.
It's insane. I mean, it is absurd. And by the way, I know that the county officials are being disingenuous because they keep changing their story. So let me give you an example. Adam Brett, who's the county administrator, initially said this: Jefferson County administration felt uncomfortable with allowing senior center patrons to leave the facility in a bus with an unknown third party. No seniors at the Jefferson County Senior Center were denied their right to vote. No, but which one is it? Are they not allowed to go because this is an event that was sponsored by the county? Or are they not allowed to go because you feel uncomfortable with a third party transporting them there? I mean, it just all seems super shady. And again, you have to take this story in the context of what's going on in Georgia. Georgia is purging its voter rolls of a very specific group of people, black people. Okay, and there's another example that I'm going to get to in just a minute. Now, Black Voters Matter had received permission in advance for this event at the senior center. The event was originally intended to encourage seniors to vote, and that was approved. That's political activity, right? And then the seniors asked whether they could ride the bus to an early voting location.
And they're like, no, they flat out don't want them to vote. And so, but I loved what the seniors said, and and one of the people at the scene described it this way. He said, it wasn't the first time someone has denied them or tried to prevent them from voting. And they're like, we're not gonna be denied.
Yeah, one person said, we're going to vote. Nobody's going to stop us.
Damn right. Okay, so yes, in places like Georgia, people have been trying to stop black people from voting for a long, long time. We told you another story, same guy, the Secretary of State Kemp. He's the one running for governor. He has not recused himself. He's the one making decisions on who gets to vote and who doesn't get to vote, who gets purged and stuff. And he recently put 53,000 people on hold, massively, disproportionately African American. Even though African Americans are only a third of the state, somehow the overwhelming majority of the people that were purged were black. Oh, golly gee, how did that happen? And then Kemp goes around saying, no, me biased in my own race? Well, I would never. Oh, I'm running against an African American Democrat in Stacey Abrams. No. It's just a coincidence that I keep pulling over black people and not letting them vote. I keep purging black voters. And then there's a third case.
Yes, so the third case has to do with mail-in ballots and how many mail-in ballots in one specific county have been rejected. So as of Monday evening, Gwinnett County, the second most populous in Georgia, had rejected 464 mail-in ballots. Through Sunday, the rejected ballots in the county amount to nearly 40% of the mail-in ballots rejected in the state. Now, we should probably look into which ballots were rejected and break them down by demographics. Now, the Coalition for Good Governance says the county is disproportionately rejecting ballots from people of color.
Of course. Well, that's 3 coincidences in a row. Golly gee, it's funny how that turns out.
And we have specific numbers for you. So whites, who make up 55.4% of the county's population, have a rejection rate of 2.5%. Asian Americans, who make up 12.2% of the county's population, have a rejection rate of 14.8%. Blacks and Hispanics, respectively, make up 28.7% and 21.2% of the county's population and have respective rejection rates of 8% and 4.3%.
So look, that's a lot of numbers. Let me focus on the 2 numbers that matter the most. White people are rejected through this same system at only a 2.5% rate. Black people are rejected at an 8% rate, 3 times as high. So what is the mechanism they're using for this? They say, well, we looked at your ballots and some of you forgot to put your birth date. Now, they get to say, oh, I'm just doing based on they forgot to fill in that one line item. Does it matter at all? Almost irrelevant, right? And is it enforced in other places? It is not enforced in other parts of Georgia that happen to have more white voters. But in this case, it's enforced and disproportionately against African Americans. So that's selective enforcement. So how do they do this? We told you about this last time. So Republicans systematically try to suppress the vote. And in my opinion, that's a form of voter fraud, okay, all throughout the country. So they find different ways to target African Americans and sometimes Latinos, et cetera. Number one is the most obvious one is voter ID. They go, well, doesn't everybody have a driver's license? No, 25% of African Americans in this country don't have a driver's license. A lot of them live in big cities and they don't need one, okay? So you've just eliminated a quarter of the African American vote if you do that. Another way that they do it is they go, well, I'm just purging voters that have the same name, right? But it turns out African Americans have same names, make up a name, Bobby Jones, et cetera, more often, much more often than white voters do. Now that's a phenomenon I didn't know, but it turns out that's a fact. They're scouring every single way to cheat. So they go, oh good, we found one. It turns out African Americans have, and so do Latinos and so do Asians, have more similar names. So I go, I don't know which one Bobby Jones is. I gotta get rid of all of them. Oops, did that affect black people more? And then of course this one now with the leaving out one particular thing that's irrelevant in a form. Well, blacks do it more for whatever reason in this particular county, but only in this county.
Right.
And that's the way we'll suppress their vote.
And what that reminds me of is what a lot of red states do in regard to abortion providers. So they will specifically target abortion providers with ridiculous regulations that make absolutely no sense, like the width of the hallway needs to be X amount of feet, or like whatever it is, right? And they do that so the regulations are so hard and difficult, almost impossible to follow, so those providers can no longer exist. And in this case, they've decided to use this ridiculous birthday regulation in one county that consists of a pretty large population of black voters. I mean, they do it specifically to target people to discourage them from doing what they should be allowed to do. And in this case, what's their right, to go out there and vote. They don't believe in democracy. Republicans in states like Georgia, who go out of their way to prevent people from voting, they don't believe in the democratic process. They just don't.
So let's keep it real, guys. The mainstream media will not tell you this because they're afraid of losing ratings if they offend their Republican voters, okay? Not even the politicians, but the voters. The other day, Lindsey Graham said it would be terrible if it turned out he was Iranian in a DNA test. Terrible, oh my God, being a Persian Iranian, yuck, okay? Trump calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas all the time. They're brazenly racist. And now look at all these things that they do against black people to make sure they don't vote. I don't care what they, oh, well, no, but you have to understand, Cenk, we're just trying to cheat because blacks vote for Democrats too much. It's not that we hate blacks, we just want to make sure that we oppress them because it's to our advantage. I don't care, that's racist. And it is cheating. So my last question to you guys is, are you going to let them get away with it? Or are you going to fight back and get on any damn bus, walk, swim, it doesn't matter. Get there by hook or by crook and get out there and vote and make sure these guys who want to oppress you, who want to take your vote away after all these years, don't get away with it. Go fight back. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.